The new DualSense controller from Sony is my favorite gaming controller, and I'm going to tell you exactly why in this video. What's poppin' guys, Michael here, and today we're going to be reviewing the new Sony DualSense PlayStation 5 controller. There's a lot of new tech in this controller, and I'm going to tell you the top 5 reasons why I think this is the best video game controller to make to date. Before we start though, I did just do a video on the new Xbox Core controller for the Series X and the Series S. This is actually my favorite Xbox controller, and I'm not even using an Elite controller anymore from Microsoft. So be sure to check that video out after you watch this one, because I got a lot to say on this new Xbox controller as well. The controller itself retails for about $70 US. If you're interested in purchasing one, I'll leave a link down in the description below. Of course, you get one if you actually purchase any sort of PlayStation 5. Now, right off the back here, we can tell we have a completely different design compared to the older PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 style of controllers. This new design is a big reason why this is my new favorite controller. You have longer stems that are easier to just hold in your palms. The triggers and the bumpers are both slightly bigger compared to the older PlayStation controller, and overall it's just a very welcome redesign. But there are particularly 5 other features why the new DualSense controller is my favorite, and let's get into it right away with the 5th reason. So the new PlayStation controller actually features a microphone and a mute button built into the actual controller itself. Now, the reason I love having a microphone built in the controller is you can pretty much navigate the PlayStation without having to use a lot of the joysticks in terms of typing. So if you're watching a YouTube video or just navigating the PlayStation Store looking for a new game, you don't actually have to type out what you're looking for. You can simply just use the voice to text feature and it'll be able to search for whatever you tell it to. You don't have to worry about plugging in a headset with a microphone on it, and if for some reason you're having headset issues, or if you don't have one, you can still talk to your friends on Party Chat with the microphone in the actual controller. The mute button's also a very nice feature as well. If you're privacy conscious or if you're in a party with friends, you can quickly mute it by just hitting a button. Next, we have number 4 here, and that is USB-C. Specifically with no battery pack. So if you watch my Xbox Core video, or really any sort of tech video I've ever done, you know I am a huge fan of USB-C. I think everything should be USB-C. But what I really like about the new DualSense controller is that there's no battery pack on top of having USB-C. So there's actually a rechargeable battery built inside this thing. You don't have to worry about buying a separate battery pack like you have to do with the Microsoft Xbox controller. And because it is USB-C, you can charge a lot of things with one cord. You can charge an Xbox controller, you can charge a gaming headset, you can charge the actual DualSense controller itself, you can charge an iPad, you can charge your phone if it has that on it. It's just a welcome feature to have, and not having to worry about a battery pack is a very, very nice feature. Just one less thing to buy and one less thing to worry about. The third thing I really like about the new DualSense controller isn't really much different from the older PlayStation 4 controller, but it does have a touchpad on it, which is something that the Xbox and Nintendo controllers obviously do not have. So this is just really nice when it comes to actually typing out text. If you're in an area where you don't want to use the voice to text feature with the microphone that we talked about earlier, you can actually navigate around the PlayStation when you're typing text using just the text pad, or excuse me, the touchpad. Also, you could probably call it a text pad too, because it's really easy to type on. In addition to just using it to select text, you can also use it inside games as well. This will be dependent on if the developers of the game actually incorporate the touchpad with the controller, but it's a nice feature to have. It's something I wish more companies would do, something I wish Microsoft had, but they don't. Overall, it's my 3rd favorite feature with DualSense, and I'm happy that they have it on it. Now, the second biggest feature that I like with the new DualSense controller is where we start getting into a lot of the newer technology, and that's the haptic feedback. So don't confuse haptic feedback with just your standard vibration in a controller. This type of feedback is actually like pinpoint accurate, I guess you could say. It can actually pinpoint a specific area of the controller to vibrate or give you haptic feedback. This again is going to be developer specific. This is something that when developers are creating the game, they have to actually program in to the actual DualSense controller itself. It basically allows you to not only see what's happening with the game, but also feel it in a more greater detail, I guess you could say. So unlike Sony and Microsoft, where they just have vibration motors built into it, this goes a step further in being able to actually pinpoint a specific area of the controller to make you feel more realistic, depending on the game you're playing. And it's one of the reasons why it's my 2nd favorite feature with the new DualSense controller. Let's get to number 1 though. So the number 1 reason I think the new DualSense controller from Sony is the best controller ever made is the new adaptive triggers as well. Now, similar to the haptic feedback that we just talked about earlier, this is new technology that only Sony is offering right now. And these adaptive triggers allow the developers, if they choose to use it, big if there, it allows the developers to actually adjust the tension of the actual controllers themselves. So what does that mean? So to give you an example with Call of Duty, if you're using something like a heavy machine gun and you actually press down on the trigger to shoot, it might feel more heavy, a little bit harder to press down because you're using a heavy machine gun. Now, Call of Duty is just an example of this, and while I could see some of you guys might not even like that feature, especially if you're doing competitive gaming, It just adds another sense of feeling into the game if that's what you're looking for. If a developer is creating a new game for the PlayStation 5, they can put this in the game pretty much wherever they see best. Now, much like the haptic feedback feature, it just adds kind of a better sense of the actual game that you're playing when these adaptive triggers are used and they're used correctly. You can not only see what you're doing, but you can also feel it in greater detail than just a couple of vibration motors. So it's a really cool feature, and it's my favorite feature on a new controller, and it's one of the big reasons why the new DualSense controller is my favorite video game controller to date. The PlayStation controller I've never been a big fan of, so having this new DualSense controller become my favorite controller over the Xbox controller was a pretty big deal for me. In fact, if I was able to do so, I would probably use the actual DualSense controller on my Xbox. Really, the only complaint that I have is I don't like where the joysticks are located. I like how Xbox has their joysticks kind of off-centered. The joysticks on any PlayStation controller are pretty much right next to each other towards the bottom. It's not something I like. I like having them kind of separated. The other reason is that the grips on the back, while they are quite cool on the DualSense controller, they're just too small. It feels like fine grit sandpaper. The attention to detail on it is awesome, but I just wish they were more predominant. Lastly, a lot of this new technology is going to be dependent on if game developers and publishers actually take advantage of the new technology in this controller. If they don't code it into their games, none of this is going to matter. So I hope they do, but let me know in the comments down below. Have you guys played the new PlayStation 5? Have you used the new DualSense controller? Let me know your opinions on it down in the comments below. And if you haven't used the new DualSense controller, let me know, do you prefer the older PlayStation controllers, or you prefer an Xbox controller, or maybe a Switch? Let me know. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day.